Hello everybody. In today's video we're going to follow up on our last one where we dealt with lens corrections, and we're going to look at the transform panel. We're going to use the same image that we just finished adjusting. So this one we've already worked on a bit with some exposure and white balance issues, noise reduction, sharpening. We got rid of chromatic aberration and some of that barrel distortion that was in here. But you can see it's not terribly pronounced, but you can see that these vertical lines here are not parallel with the edges of the frame. Eventually they'll converge at a point up well out beyond the screen, but we can see that they will converge. They all sort of lean inward, which is a pretty normal thing to find in any kind of vertical lines where we're looking up or down and we don't have things exactly perfectly centered. So that's where this transform panel really comes in handy. So as you can see, it might be a little bit bewildering to see all these different options. These buttons here are different ways that you can have Lightroom automatically correct this for itself, whereas these are all ways to do it manually. So if we go here to auto, and you can see these verticals now look like they're basically parallel with the edges of the frame. Keeping in mind that this structure, since it's abandoned and it's falling down, is probably not perfectly square from an architectural standpoint as it could be anyway. So that's pretty good just using auto. Auto in certain situations is gonna be thrown off by certain lines or shapes in your image. So you know, you can try it, see how it does. Let's turn that off. Level, all it does is just try to find something to use for reference to level it. Let's actually, if we hover right here and we get this grid overlay, we can look and see if these verticals here, if they seem to line up with the verticals in the overlay. And they're not quite. So what the level function is doing is basically just rotating the image this way. So let's put it right about there. I think that's pretty good. But you can see we still have these leaning in. So level, again, level sometimes will work, sometimes it won't. This, because it has a lot of verticals and diagonals, not so much really any true horizontals, it may or may not always do the best job with level. Vertical is going to prioritize correcting these kinds of distortions here where verticals are leaning in. So we can try that. Let's get our grid back here. You can see over here, if you look at this line, when I put the grid on it, it's basically parallel. But there's things over here that are not really quite square. Again, this structure is probably got things sagging in certain places that you may not get it absolutely perfect. Guided, let's try that. You can still see this side leans a bit. This here looks basically straight up and down, but we still have some distortions. Let's turn that off. We've done level, we've done vertical. Let's try full now. So you can see this corrected a lot, but we've lost quite a bit of the image. So let's check this box to constrain the crop. We don't really need all that blank space there. Now we can see as we look here, these look very parallel with the side. Same here. And I imagine there's some warping going on. You know, this is not going to be as straight and parallel as this or this or this. But full did a pretty good job in that case. Well, let's turn that off and let's just see. We did lose quite a bit. Let's go back here. We lost quite a bit on this side. Let's go all the way back to right here. And now let's try to correct this manually. So the things that I notice being the most obvious things to correct would be maybe making sure that this is, if the image is level, this, since it's closest to the center, should be straight up and down. This should be perpendicular to the edges of the bottom of the frame here. So first let's rotate, and let's see if we can get that roughly straight up and down. And I think that's pretty good. Next, we need to deal with these verticals that all seem to be converging this way. So let's go to vertical. And as we move this, you can see it's almost like it's rotating the image. It's rotating the bottom of it away from us as we move this way. And when we go this direction, when we move the vertical slider to the right, then it looks like it's moving the top of the image away from us. These controls basically work the way you would control perspective using the rear standard on a large format camera. So we can tilt this forward and back. We also have horizontal control, which lets us rotate the image like this. When I move the horizontal slider to the left, it feels like it's bringing the left part of the image towards me. And likewise, when I push that slider to the right, it seems like it's bringing the right part of the image towards me. So let's zero that back out. We're not going to make that correction on this image, but the vertical, I think we can make some adjustments there. So as you're adjusting the vertical aspect of the image, you may find you get one side of the image that feels like it's getting pretty straight, but then you still have issues on the other side. So you may need to go back and adjust the rotate slider again and see if that helps. Let's look at what we have here. This still feels pretty straight up and down. This actually seems like it's leaning out just a little bit now. So that looks pretty good on this side over here, but over here is where it still feels like it's leaning a bit. So we could see what would happen if we give it a little bit of a horizontal adjustment, see if that helps us at all. Try to rotate a little bit. Make another vertical adjustment. And that's actually starting to look a little bit more square now. Let's check the constrain crop button, see what we've got. And overall, it's looking out here and here, it's looking a lot more technically correct. Let's look here again. Our center, this corner here, that looks pretty good. So these are just quick little minor adjustments that help us dial this in. Aspect, I can show you what that does. We're basically just changing the proportions of the frame. This kind of thing, I can't say that I've ever used it in any of my images because it's usually a dead giveaway. Our brains can pick up on that really quickly. So it's there. There may be some situation where you need it, but I have yet to encounter that for myself, at least in my own images. Scale, if you think of that as just a way to zoom in We could do the same thing with the crop tool up here. We zoom out. Obviously, there's only so far we can go. Next, with X offset, we're basically cropping and zooming to the left of the image. When I push the slider this way, when I go this way, we're going the other direction. Again, that's with careful composition in camera and good smart use of the crop tool and a couple of subtle adjustments of these. I think you're not going to find that you're using these very often. Y offset, we're just sort of zooming and moving up higher and lower. Those aren't nearly as common of an adjustment to make, whereas vertical, horizontal, and rotate are likely going to be your bread and butter corrections for any sort of architectural shots like this. When it comes to something with more organic forms like a landscape, then it may just be a simple leveling with this automatic level tool, or just minor adjustments with rotate. So I've opened another catalog and pulled up an image that will be another good demonstration of how the lens corrections combined with the transform panel can help clean up your perspective. So let's go ahead and enable our profile corrections. In this case, this was a relatively new lens that I was shooting with. It was the Sigma 20mm art lens. So there's not, the profile wasn't recognized automatically, so I need to go choose it. Let's go Sigma 20mm. And make sure we have the correct Canon profile, and let's just compare. So minimal distortion compared to our previous image, but you know, we want to clean up as much as we can before we attempt this. So let's go in here and see what we can do with our verticals. And these may be a little tricky just because this is further from us, this is closer, but if you look, those are pretty close. This is really just slightly, it's parallel through about here, and then it starts to come in a little bit. This one leans just a little bit. Actually, not too bad. See with a little rotate, that helps. We have just a minimal horizontal correction, and that looks pretty good. Let's go back to the beginning. Here it was before. It's definitely significant distortion with these leaning way in. Let's go back to where we ended. Now we have something like this. We've lost some information off the sides, but we have something where the perspective is basically corrected. So that is kind of the highlights of how the transform panel works. As I said, in conjunction with lens corrections, you can really get things straightened out pretty quickly, and it's a lot easier to do than it would be with a large format camera. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me or post them on the forum. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.